With the databases we have, the hospital databases, the CDC, you would think that they could pull the numbers from medical records and just see where people live. I mean, this is not crazy stuff to do anymore, but it's just not forthcoming. Like, there's a lot of medical mysteries, not mysteries, but things where we're pretty sure we got an answer, but we're wondering why the medical system isn't quite admitting it. Hello, and welcome to Legends of Longevity with Joseph Entz. I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey toward living a longer, healthier, and more vibrant life. This podcast is all about uncovering the secrets to longevity, whether it's groundbreaking advancements in heart health, lifestyle tips to keep you thriving, or inspiring stories of people who've beat the odds. Together, we'll explore the tools, techniques, and mindset shifts that can help you unlock your fullest potential. Whether you're here to learn how to enhance your well-being, support your loved ones, or just stay ahead of the curve in health and wellness, you're in the right place. Let's empower each other to not only live longer, but live stronger. Welcome back to another episode of Legends of Longevity. Today I have a fun treat, Frankie Corrigan. Frankie is a guy who was in radio for 33 years. And, to be in radio, you've got to observe something and then you've got to communicate it with a perspective that adds value. So Frankie's been doing this for 33 years. He's now independent. He's got a great, I think, Frankie and Jess podcast, and it's a big thing here in Utah. And as I'm getting older, I'm seeing the value of having credible, trusted sources of information. And something interesting about Frankie is his wife took ill, and he's an observer. So we kind of noticed that a bunch of other people in the neighborhood got a little bit too sicker than normal. And he did something about it. He sent some letters, got some meetings, and we're going to hear a little bit about that story and then go on about his journey, because he's one of the more interesting people to talk to. And he's successfully navigated, he won't admit this, but work-life balance. He's got a pretty healthy life, and he goes around Utah, and he gets tired of high-fiving because everybody knows him, everybody sees him, and he always has something to contribute. So welcome, Frankie.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the intro. That was quite the intro, so thank you.
Let's start from the beginning on that story of how a citizen can make a huge change by simply observing and speaking.
Well, I'm hoping it can make change, but so it was 4 years ago, this month actually, that my wife Tammy was diagnosed with Parkinson's. She is 54, so at the age of 50, early onset Parkinson's, which, by the way, that took a couple years to even get to that point, because the first neurologist that she went to said she was too young to be tested for Parkinson's. So we went for about a year and a half, 2 years before we finally got to a movement specialist up at the U, Dr. Lamott. And so there's been some silver linings in all of it, but 4 years technically deep into this diagnosis. And as we, just started talking about it within the family, and then that led into kind of going public with it. Then she realized that where she grew up in West Valley, 3,500 South, 4,800 West, in that area, there were like 7 people on her street that were diagnosed with it. So either had been living with it, had it, maybe since passed away. But the more we started talking about it, the more we found out that people in that neighborhood had it or have it. And then her dad was just diagnosed with it about 6 months ago, and he's been having tremors for a long time, so we think he had it for a while. And then her late brother, who passed away in 2019, and this is another side thing that I'm finding with the Parkinson's. So there's a Parkinson's cluster investigation going on right now, but I'm also seeing a lot of cancers. He passed away from colon cancer. Her mom just passed away from a bunch of cancers. Colon was one of them. But we think Kurt, her late brother, had Parkinson's as well. He had tremors, and we just kind of chalked it up to maybe the medication at the time. Didn't know. But it's been unnerving to see all of the people. So basically what I did is I was really frustrated, obviously, with it. And I just put it out over social media, made a video, and was looking for people maybe in that area of 4800 West and 3500 South to come forward, DM me and give me information. And then I haven't taken the information yet, but I contacted the health department and said, hey, I'm seeing a big high number of cases coming out of this area in West Valley. So they got in touch with me, and this is the first they've ever done a Parkinson's cluster investigation. So they're used to doing like cancer clusters, those kinds of investigations. So they were pretty upfront at the start of this, and it's ongoing right now. And they said, resources where they are as far as just not having the people. And this is something that's new to them. So they're like, bear with us. And yeah, it's still early on. I've yet to give the data that I've been compiling in the last few months. It's been I'm trying to think, what are we in May? So I think it was around, I can't even remember now. It's probably a good portion of this year, maybe January when I started this, February. And it's still growing, and the actual pocket is getting bigger. And I'm seeing that there's a lot more, and this is kind of a side note with it. So ABC4 contacted me. They did a story, so that made it even bigger as far as people getting in touch. Then they did a piggyback story off of that, and they got in touch with the woman the researcher over at the health department that I've been in contact with. And she said in one of the stories, which kind of was a little was disheartening, I guess. She said that, it's Caucasian, veteran, elderly people that have it. And it's like, well, Tammy was diagnosed at 50. And then the people that I'm meeting along the way. So now we're just, we've been immersed in the Parkinson's community now for a bit, but since going public with this, there's so many people that I meet and have met that are maybe in their 60s, but they've had tremors for maybe 10 or 12 years, or maybe getting misdiagnosed. And until they get that full-on diagnosis, that's their data. So they're saying, well, you were diagnosed at 65, so therefore you just started Parkinson's at 65, instead of taking some of that other data into consideration. So that kind of tells me that, if that's what you're going from, and I get you need to have kind of markers, but it seems skewed if you're not willing to be open about. There's a lot of early onset Parkinson's that I'm seeing. If I look at it that way, like people saying, oh yeah, I've had these tremors for 10 or 12 years and I just got diagnosed. You know what I mean? Some people they maybe just at that point, maybe not going to the doctor, or maybe going to doctors and they just don't know what it is until they get that diagnosis. So it seems to me like people, from what we're seeing from on our side, the data that we're collecting, they're getting it earlier than what the health department's going to maybe state within their investigation, if that makes sense.
Wow, like a whole Aaron Brockovich type thing going on here. But we've yet to find the source.
Yeah, and that's another thing they said right out of the chute. They said it's going to be tough to connect the dots, with a culprit, which I get because I think there's probably several factors. I mean, you've got a lot of industries out in West Valley. Industries, I think we don't even have to say by name that the stuff that's going into the water, into the soil, into the air. Then they're saying that golf courses, and so she grew up near a golf course, about 1.8 miles from a golf course. So people that live within 1 to 3 miles of a golf course, your chances of getting Parkinson's are 176% higher.
Not 1% higher?
Yeah, it's like 176% chance higher.
Yeah, at the golf course, the pesticides and the glyphosate are the main culprits, right?
Yeah, gets into the water.
And then in that area, about where in that valley was, like 50 years ago, that was a dumping spot for a lot of businesses, I think. That used to be just desert land, right? 100 years ago.
Yep, and a lot of farming there. I think there were a lot of groves in that area back probably in the 40s.
But you can't find it. Maybe it was spread out from one dump pile. You no idea. It could be in the water. It could be.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that part of it is daunting, and we may never know or we may never connect the dots on what it is. But that's the thing that's just frustrating is, if we were to, this is the thing I said, and it didn't make it to the news piece, which I understand because they can only take so much of it. But if we were to, because I'm getting people from all around the valley saying the same thing, like you should do it here in Bountiful or Sandy. And it's like this stuff is a dime a dozen, these clusters.
Really? There's more than one, you're thinking?
Mm-hmm. And it's like a lot of cancer clusters. I mean, it's just a lot of disease that's out there that's clustered up.
You know, with the databases we have, the hospital bases, the CDC, you would think that they could pull the numbers from medical records and just see where people live. I mean, this is not crazy stuff to do anymore, but it's just not forthcoming. Like, there's a lot of medical mysteries, not mysteries, but things where we're pretty sure we got an answer, but we're wondering why the medical system isn't quite admitting it.
Well, and with AI, like you said, just to speak to your point, it would be pretty easy to build out a quick database, just feeding all that information in.
Yeah, one guy could do it and not a lot of time with the right access. Like, it wouldn't. And then you've got, like, I don't know, in America, where privacy is being used against us, because I think every citizen would want to get a text from the hospital system saying, hey, did you used to live at these areas? Give us the zip codes where you grew up or where you've lived for a while. Yeah. And, you know, you could probably bird dog some of this by cross-referencing, but it doesn't feel like that effort's being made or even thought of.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so I don't know if anything is going to come of this, but you know, at least the awareness and you know, I did a post the other day, just kind of giving an update, and then just the fact that people feel like they're heard and they're seen in this, and we feel the same thing. Like, at least we feel like we're being heard and we feel seen. So I think if that's all that comes of it, you know, at least people are talking about it. People are angry, which is good. That could cause something from this, but yeah,
man, what a bummer. Therapy for Parkinson's, you come across any interesting ones?
So Tammy's been doing the hyperbaric chamber over at US Cryotherapy in Sugar House. They've been great, and she does that once or twice a week. And it's hard to quantify certain things, but she feels better. You know, she gets better sleep when she goes into the chamber. She does it for about 75 minutes a pop. We have a cold plunge that we got late last year. She does that pretty much every morning, and she'll go down and do that for like a minute or two.
Good for her.
Yeah. And then we do boxing. This is something that we started pretty much right after her diagnosis. We heard that there's a Rock Steady program. So boxing is really good, and exercise in general is really good to slow the progression of Parkinson's. So they know that. They know that movement, exercise slows the progression. So we've been doing boxing for a little over 2 years now. Do it twice a week. Just did it this morning.
You do not have the face of a wife beater, but okay.
Well, they're heavy bags. They're like 110-pound heavy bags. That was a little intimidating, because when we first went into there to talk about it and look into it, I thought, I don't want to get like hit, even with headgear on. I don't want to get, you know, nailed in the head. I don't want to hit anybody. But it's just, yeah, you're training with heavy bags and stuff.
And I love when people get into the sports, because you get to see how quick that body can be, and people get to use their arms like weapons. I really subscribe to that. People tuning up their body for a purpose, and they get wicked good at punching, man.
Well, that, and so there's so, yeah, it's funny you say that, like physically, mentally, emotionally, there's so many benefits for both of us. And then, and it's almost like when we go, it's a date for us. So there's that benefit that comes from it. You're immersed in this communal Parkinson's, just everybody that's there. And we'll go to one class that's specific for Parkinson's, and the other one is just a regular boxing class. But you might have some people with Parkinson's in that class as well, but you kind of know everybody. And just the fact that you're in that community with people that know exactly what she's going through. I only know externally what she's going through and what she tells me. You know, so I can relate, but I can't relate like somebody that actually has it. So that has been there's so many benefits to it.
Yeah. Hey, so we like taking on topics and we noodle them through pretty good. But designing your life for happiness, wellness, what do you think are the big ones? Like you and your wife doing things together, or join a community. Use that word, and it's used in the news a lot, but not many people join communities or even think of it that way. Like designing your life with intention and purpose. And I tell myself I don't like people, but we are all people animals, and you need a certain level of it. So let's acknowledge that. And yeah, what do you think? Because you've had lifestyles where you were grinding it out and killing yourself. You've had others. Where's the sweet spot for you?
So what? I'll give you a little backstory. So you're talking about, as you kind of gave the intro. So I started in radio in 1990 outside of Detroit, in and around Detroit. And then I literally just finished the radio thing after we got fired, April 3rd, 2023. So that was the run that I had in radio. And almost 26 years on that morning show at this radio station here in town. And they walked us out like criminals. I mean, I was there almost 27 years. We helped build the station. We put our heart and soul into that station. It got really toxic towards the end. Now, as we look at it, they did us a favor. And we knew at that point that they did us a favor, but it just didn't feel like it because they walked us out. It was bad parting. But then as the dust settled and we decided to do the podcast, that was like a month later, we started recording, even though we weren't able to publish it. We just started putting them in the can, knew that it would be like an audible diary of us kind of up and down, right?
That's cool. Yeah.
Checking in every week. Yeah. And then that way we could air.
So you give yourself permission to have bad episodes or self-flagellating episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because we were up and down, and sometimes we were on the same level of what we were going through, and sometimes one might be up here and the other's down here. So we released it in January 2nd, 2024. And again, we didn't know what was going to happen with it. So you got that fear of the unknown. But at the same time, we turned down a couple of offers at the beginning to go in, and we didn't want to leave. Felt like we could have left Utah to go anywhere we just, at that point, we're like, this is our home. We don't want to leave. So we opted to take the chance on ourselves. And again, the fear of the unknown, that was a little like, oh, what are we doing? We hope it works out. We know the audible space, but we don't know podcasting. I consume them, but I don't know the business side of it, that sort of thing. So you got all this stuff swirling in your brain. But then as we started doing it and just kind of one foot in front of the other and figuring it out as we went on, the financial compensation that we aren't getting with the podcast, because we're making money with it, but nowhere near what we were making on the radio. But we're getting other forms of compensation, freedom, time with the family, time with Tammy, that whereas before I was on the radio and I was kind of tethered to the station. So she has a rough time in the morning. So I'm here with her. I'm here with our boy he's almost 10. So I've had a few years now to literally be with him every day, walk him to school. So it's those things that as this stuff is all playing out, and then I'm realizing this gift from the universe and what it is, it's the time. It's the presence, which I didn't have before. So before, when we were in the machine, I was home, but physically I wasn't home. I was always like, my mind, it was almost like an iPhone with all the apps open. That's the way it felt. Like they were all just running in the background and sucking the life out of me. Right. And now it's like I've closed out the apps. I might have one or two open, but I close them out and I feel like I'm just more engaged. So that was intentional when we went into it, because we're like, you know what, we're going to do X amount of episodes a week, which is 3. We're now recording 1 day a week, which is a Monday. It's a long day, and then I edit, and then I'll edit kind of throughout the week. And then by Wednesday, like today, I've got a little bit to do. And then I'm kind of done for the week, other than maintaining certain things. But I can do this stuff on my terms, like when I know what I need to get done and when it needs to get done. So I'm not tethered to it. I might edit for a little bit. Then I go take Axel to like guitar lessons, or we're walking him to school, whatever, right? So it's freed up all this time. So that's been very intentional, and I'll never go back to it. We've had offers. Even that other station came back to us about 6 months ago, and they kind of went around like a friend that works over at the radio station. They kind of did it in just a stupid kind of weak way. to see if we would be open to it. And it's like, no, why would we want to go back to that? You know, just, I will never be in that again. So it's like, yeah, times can be a little thin money wise, but we've done okay over the years where we've positioned ourselves where we can weather the storm. And it's not all about money. I mean, of course you need money to live, but you don't need as much as you think. And that's the thing. And I've really, and this is another element that we've talked about, but we haven't talked about on this. So in that year of 2023, it felt like everything was imploding, right? Like, I don't know what's happening. There was excitement about what's possibly to come with the podcast, but I don't know what's going to come of it. I had the opportunity to do ayahuasca, and that changed my life. It was a complete 180. I felt like I got a new lease on life. And I feel like I'm still withdrawing from that, like making these withdrawals. I can kind of go back to it. And then this whole thing, this is so going off the rails here, but the Telepathy Tapes podcast, you and I have talked a little bit about that. This podcast, it's weird. I was going down this spiritual journey from the ayahuasca. Certain things I wasn't able to articulate until I started listening to this Telepathy Tapes podcast. So I have been in this collective consciousness journey and didn't even realize it from that ayahuasca. So that's helped really center me, just with a lot of things, man, things that come up, stresses in life. We all have stresses, but I handle them differently. Like, I've got a couple of things that hit big money things. Like, I just got the car out of the shop and I'm looking at, I don't know, a couple grand. It's like a couple grand that sure we may have, and we don't really have it to give, but thankfully we have it and we'll figure it out. And I'm not letting stuff like that, I don't know, get me from just like harbor inside me. And just that I just have a whole new outlook on life, and it's pretty cool. I'm digging it, and I'm digging the exploration aspect of going down that road some more.
Yeah, that simmering pit of worry in your tummy is no fun to have. So the sweet spot, you consciously said, I got to make some changes, or you were thrown into a situation where, but going through it, you're like, you were more tolerant and not looking for lifelines, because you're like, I'm ready to feel some pain to get what I want out of this. And you did. Yeah. And now your lifestyle is pretty cool. Like, going to conferences, events, you get invited to stuff, just to see what's going on. And dude, that's so cool.
Yeah. And it's really neat. And not that we don't have our problems. Everybody's got their problems. And, and Tammy's Parkinson's has crossed over to the other side. That happened, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago. So it started off on the one side, it's over on the other side, but it's still slow progressing. We just don't know what that looks like. And like what you just said, not that we don't worry, but we try not to fester. You think about it, you kind of worry a little bit, and then you just think about where we are right now. So I was just telling a neighbor about this yesterday. We just caught up, and it's like, it's unrealistic when they say live every day like it's your last. That's not realistic, right? We live every week like it's our last. So within that week, we get couple time, we get solo time, we get family time. You get with your work stuff, creative stuff. We're checking all the boxes, and some weeks are better than others, but for the most part that is, we're checking all those boxes. And and it just feels more balanced and realistic.
Right. It would be nice to let that go and just sit in the same room and not have a plan and all sit on your phones. But yeah, live the week, get it out. Oh man. Okay. So mental health, we talked about, ayahuasca, LSD, psilocybin mushrooms. And in 2018, John Hopkins put out a huge research study. And they gave everybody in this research study 4 heroic doses of LSD or psilocybin, but 5 big doses. And they had them in groups. They had alcoholics, and 80% of the alcoholics got better. They had depressed people as a category. And so the alcoholics, like some of them could drink after that and not lapse totally into their cascade of alcohol, which dangerous game, but they played it. And then the depressed people, like 80% of them got better. You know, some were still blue, but they weren't really, really terminally sad. And that drug has had this brain plasticity thing that's pushed, and it's amazing. Like, that should be mainstream. Depressed people take this one thing that's found in nature, and 80% of you will get better permanently. Well, that would help a lot of people if that was released in public. But we're finding through that brain plasticity, people are finding a whole new outlook on life. They can take on new hobbies. They have new endurance for dealing with other people. They have options again, and it's amazing. But the brain plasticity is so important, because when you make any big change in your life, you know, you're going to be, it's new, your body's got to readjust, and mentally too. Like, your mom's not there. How long did you miss your mom when you were a young kid? A lot. You know, having the security of a house that's you know, everything's been going great, but now it's giving me issues. So since you took that, you said you not only feel better, but you're more intentional about what you're getting out of it. Is that all fair?
Yeah, no, it's fair. And then some. I was also, because of the radio career and getting up in the middle of the night, essentially, I'd get up at 3:05 and did that pretty much not my whole career, but a good almost 30 years probably of that, right? Getting up and having that split shift and it just messes you up where you're napping in the day, and seems like you're not foggy. I mean, I got beyond that, like, always foggy thing, but now that I've been away from it and actually getting decent, you know, I've got circadian rhythm again. So it's amazing. But during that time, I was relying on so many substances to shut down because I had to sleep. And that anxiety would amp up or ramp up if I had any inkling of, like, I'm going to oversleep, that kind of thing. I had to be up, and I had to take all kinds of things to shut down. So Ambien, I was addicted to that for like 18 or 19 years. At the very end, I was taking Ambien, some type of a thing for sinuses, but the side effect was sleep. I took CBD/THC gummies. I take one of those. Not all the time, but I was on Klonopin, which is for anxiety. I wasn't taking that a lot, but I still was.
That's a rough one to get off of. I'm glad you took little.
Yeah. And then Tramadol, which was the hardest for me to get off because I had to prep leading up to the ayahuasca. That was months of prep. I mean, that's just as important as the ceremonial aspect of ayahuasca and then the integration. So it's kind of broken down in thirds. It's the prep, ceremony, and then integration. So that took me longer than the other people that were gearing up for that ceremony. And I knew it. So I started the process earlier because I knew it was going to be a harder road for me. And it really was. There were some dark periods there. And I trace it back now, or actually after I got through it, that I was so addicted to not only the Ambien, but that Tramadol. So that's a pain pill. And it mimics like is it an SSRI? Is that what I don't know if I'm saying the right. I think for the brain, it's almost like an opiate kind of addiction and effect.
Yeah, I've tried that. You're groggy the next morning too. Like, it'll put you to sleep, but
yeah. And I was taking that probably a few times a week. I was taking that for I had some arthritic stuff going on with my hands with an antibiotic that I had a bad reaction to back in like 2011, 2012. And that was about a year and 4 months of going through doctors and all types of tests, and they couldn't figure out what it was. It turned out that it was this antibiotic called minocycline that I'd been taking from my dermatologist, that he kept prescribing it. I didn't know that was something that I wasn't supposed to be on indefinitely. I was taking that for like 8 or 9 years until my body just rejected it. And it was like they thought I had cancer, lupus, Lyme disease, you name it. They thought I might have it. And then it was me that made the connection that it was this minocycline is what it's called. So I was taking the Tramadol for that, for this residual, like this arthritic stuff that I have from it. So I had all this stuff that I was taking. I don't take any of it anymore. I don't rely on anything we do a nighttime sleep tea, my wife and I, every night. That's kind of our ritual. And that is like a lemon balm tea with valerian root in it. And then I might take some magnesium before I go to bed. And that's the extent of it. And I fall asleep now within 10 minutes. I'm out.
Wow. Yeah, that magnesium, once you're off the hard stuff, that actually is pretty effective, the magnesium.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And I try to, like, again, going back to just where my mind was and how it changed my thinking. And that is, I was always worrying about the future. I was always worrying about the stuff that's the stuff that's not within our control. We talk about that. There's so much that's not within your control, and that's the stuff we worry about. And that was one of the big takeaways that I got from the ayahuasca is all the things you're worrying about, and it's right here. Like, this is the stuff you're missing because you're always up here. And I'd hang out a little bit in the past, but mostly up in the future of things that I don't know if they're ever going to happen. And, chances are they're not. Your brain just goes down these rabbit holes, and it makes everything worse than it actually is or ever will be.
How did the ayahuasca manifest that thought to you?
Well, I went in with the intention of just a lot of the things that was happening, like losing the job, felt like I lost my identity. I was really having a hard time dealing with Tammy's Parkinson's. I was worried about that, worried about the future with what's this podcast going to look like? What am I going to do for a living? I just felt like I was losing everything. And I had either a higher spirit or my higher self literally talking to me one of the nights. I did it 2 nights, a Friday and a Saturday night. And one of the things that I was intentional about is like, help me get through this. And again, it was like, you need to stay right here and be present. And that's and sometimes I have a little problem with, maybe I'm doing something for work and Axel wants to play. And I'm like, but I'm like, I need to put this on hold because I can. And then, I know there are moments, these are moments that are fleeting. I know that he's almost 10. In probably 2 years, he's not going to be wanting to play with me like he wants to play with me now. So I know that. So I had to be really intentional. And that's kind of what I got from it. Like, it's just you need to be like this right here. Like when we get together and we do lunch, I'm right here with you. And so many times that I have.
Yeah, being present is such a skill now.
Yeah. And like going back to the operating system, like where I was telling you, like where it felt like my life was an iPhone and I had all these apps open. And just constantly, I could be talking to somebody or my family, but I had all these other thoughts going on in the background, worrying about work, or worrying about stuff that doesn't matter.
The inconsequential, eh? And that shows up in your blood work too. The stress, the cortisol, the fighting the circadian rhythm. Yeah, that'll wear you down.
Well, and I think about going back to where we were, and if we still were in that machine, we knew health-wise. We knew, like in those last few years of that job, and that's the thing that's so. There's so many people that can relate to this. You're making the money, you have this security, but it's a false sense of security. And you just think, like, I can't lose this. And then you realize that it's really not what you thought it was. And like I said, once I'm away from it, I don't know, it just feels.
Yeah, you care about it so much that the fight or flight kicks in if something threatens it. The numbers, whatever. And you just, did you get into meditation?
Meditation, breath work. So I have a friend of mine who, he's a pretty fit guy. So he's the one that introduced me to breath work. So we both did the ayahuasca together with another friend. So I've kind of introduced the breath work into what I do, cold plunging. We actually did it's called a misogi. Did I tell you about this? I can't remember if I told you about this. So this is back in this last November. Is it November or October? It was October. We wanted to go to Finland and do this. And then we had a friend. So one of our coaches at the boxing gym, his girlfriend is from Finland. And I told him what we were going to do. And he said, don't waste the time and the money to go there. He said, I just came back. What you guys want to do, you can do in northern Minnesota. He said, I lived in northern Minnesota. He said, pick any of the small towns up there on Lake Superior. You can get the same experience that you would get in Finland. And we did. And it was almost like the universe was listening to us. We were at a coffee shop. We're like, okay, let's just find a place. The first place that we looked at this lodge in Two Harbors, Minnesota, which is you fly into Minneapolis, you get on another plane, you fly to Duluth, you take a car about 30 minutes. It's on the northern part of Lake Superior. And we went for about 3 days, and it was this sauna that they had about 40 feet from the lake. So we did the sauna, and then we go cold plunge in Lake Superior. We did that for 3 days. We did about 15 cold plunges in Lake Superior. We were in that lake for probably at the very end, 11 minutes a pop. And I know you don't get the benefit. I think they say you don't really, after 2 minutes, you don't really get the health benefits. It's just more of but I don't know.
You're telling your body to grow brown fat to help regulate the temperature. So dude, that's intense.
It was amazing though. And it was like this, and that was another thing where it's just it almost seems like it's easier to articulate what was happening. As it's happening, and then you look back and reflect back, it's like and I remember that's how, because it was shocking, obviously, to the system. Like the first time we got in, even the second time that we got in, and then once I said out loud to my buddy, I'm like, once you surrender to it, there's some type of I don't know. It was almost like a spiritual, like we're immersed in this, like being welcomed by the trees and the lake. It's almost like it knew we were there and we were supposed to be there. And I don't know, it was just something that it was magical. That's hard to articulate, but it just felt right. And so I've been doing the cold plunging and the meditation, and I do my hikes, and I'm intentional with that as far as I don't listen to anything when I'm hiking. So I'll just be with my thoughts. And sometimes there are thoughts that are kind of coming and going, and sometimes I'm trying to meditate as I'm hiking or taking a walk with the dog. Same thing. I might listen to stuff with that, but other times I'm just trying to be more intentional with what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm feeling.
All right, on your meditation, what's your definition of meditating? Because I still don't have one.
So if I'm hiking, again, I'm not listening to anything, and I try not to think about things that I need to do and that sort of thing. Or if I do have those thoughts, I try to process through them, get rid of them, right? Kind of in and out. And then I'm trying to be more connected to where I am. So that is looking around more, because I love hiking. And a lot of times I can go for a hike and you're just kind of like, I want to get from point A to point B. And then, you know what I mean? And then everything that happens in between is kind of like, sure, I took it in, but did I really take it in? So now I'm really intentional about taking in everything. And when I say everything, I mean listening to the wind, the breeze, the birds, insects. I mean, that's something that I've been really in tune with. When a bee flies, around you, and you're just, I don't know, you feel like you're a part of something bigger. Like you're just, again, it sounds all weird, but it's something that.
No. When you're totally in tune and the birds, the crickets stop, and something's going on, and you look over there because you're part of the field, and it takes a lot of time to tune into it. And that was one of my favorite things about Boy Scouts, was this merit badge where you had to go sit out in the woods for 2 hours and just observe. Little boys had the hardest time with that one. But
because your minds are just everywhere. So can I share something with you real quick? So this was a hike that I just took on last Friday. And I had like a good chunk of the day to get a good hike in. Because sometimes I'll go, it's maybe a 45 minute to the whatever, and then you come back. So maybe it's an hour and a half hike. But this, I had a good chunk of the day to go. So it's one of my favorite hikes. I haven't hiked it in a while. And because I've been kind of going down the road of this Telepathy Tapes podcast, and that is, for people that haven't heard it, there's so many things that they talk about, but it's the collective consciousness. That's kind of the overall message with it. So I've really been delving into that. and I kind of was talking to my dad, or I was trying to communicate with my dad. And my dad passed away about 10 years ago, right before our little boy was born. And I've had little moments here and there, but not as many as I'd like, where I felt like he came to me, but maybe a handful. So I was just talking to him. I was really intentional about it in my head, talking to him, like, if you can hear me, can you show me a sign? And you know what it is. And I said to him, just give me an animal encounter, but more than just like the squirrel or whatever. I mean, I want an animal. He knows what I want. And I'll tell you why he knows what I want in a second, because I had an experience right after he had passed away on a hike. So I get all the way up to Desolation Lake, and I'm very open, and I'm just trying to be in tune, like if he's trying to send me a message, like he can hear me. On the way back down, I can hear something off to my left, and I look over, and it's a mama moose and the baby, and they're probably not close, but they're not far, maybe 30 yards, and they're doing their thing. So I'm very respectful with wildlife, especially moose, because they can be dangerous. And she wasn't freaked out at all. The baby wasn't freaked out. And not that I haven't seen moose on this trail, because there's a lot of moose up Big Cottonwood Canyon, but I've hiked this trail probably, I don't know, in 100 times since I've lived here in almost 30 years. And I've only seen moose on that trail maybe 3 times. So I felt like this connection, like it was my dad saying, I did hear you. And so I'm trying to work on more of my consciousness, and that greater consciousness, the expanded consciousness. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm excited to do more of that and just be more intentional on there's more to where we are.
Okay. Let's build on this point for the audience. From intentional to, we're going to end on the telepathy tapes, but I want to talk about breath work, meditation, and then get to the telepathy tapes, because they're all related somehow, and I'm really trying to find the commonality. So I've been reading books on this, breath work, meditation, and I'm like you, like I'm just going to try and do it as I'm sorting it. And everybody's got a different definition. Like some are to control your brain, some to keep your thoughts from wandering, some are to let the thoughts pass into nothingness. But they all seem to be an exercise to control and say, I'm the one in charge of this brain and whatever. Cool. Sweet. And so many people report the benefits of sitting there with your thoughts, controlling it, not controlling it. That I don't know what to do with that information. Like it's such a persistent thing, and people claim the benefits, and I know there's benefits with meditation, but then you add in breath work, which I've dismissed my whole life. And I'm in medical imaging, and so I was dismissive until I did this class on third eye development, and I thought that was pretty cool. And they say, do deep breaths and you'll get that oxygen up to your third eye. Okay. And I thought that was kind of hokey until I saw some imaging of it. And they breathe in, and it's like a pump. It pushes the spinal fluid up to your brain, and it rotates and moves. And then you breathe out. And then so all of those chakras and chi centers, that they do systemic clenching or control inside to get that to rise up and down. And doing good, aggressive breath work, a lot of people get those DMT rushes, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. The Wim Hof stuff, I don't know if you know who he is. He is one that my buddy introduced me to. So I'll do that, and that is maybe take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'll just lay down and I'll do one of those sessions. And dude, it is like, it's almost like rebooting your computer. It just feels like a power reboot. It's amazing when you have, like, if I have time, and I don't do that as much as I want to, but when I do, it feels incredible. A lot of times I'll incorporate the breath work even on like a hike, or if I'm walking, I'll just kind of incorporate it then. And it's amazing, and I'm just really intentional with boxing. And, because that's the thing, when you're working out or doing anything physical, so many people forget to breathe. And you have to breathe. I mean, you have to, right? For your muscles to not seize up, and you got to get the blood flowing. But I'll do like certain breath work patterns, either in boxing or if I'm walking or like hiking. It's just, or if I'm driving. Sometimes I'm driving and I'll just do a quick 3 or 4 minute breath work session. And it just helps regulate that nervous system like instantaneous. And even, this is another with Tammy. So she's starting to do this more because she's seen the benefits with her Parkinson's. So she's got something that it's called dystonia. So people with Parkinson's, some people get it, some people don't. So that's like muscle spasms, and like her feet will turn in, and it starts with one foot, and it goes to the other foot, and the toes curl, and the foot literally turns in from the knee.
And they're aware, but their brain's doing it, but they're not telling their brain to do it, right? It just does it. And
she'll have to, like this morning, we were walking Axel to school, and she had to sit down on the curb, and then I walked him the rest of the way, and then kind of picked her up on the way back. She has to kind of sit down, because if she's standing, it feels like her kneecap is going to pop. But just the other day we did this. So she's laying on the couch, I'm kind of rubbing her, I'm holding her foot so it won't turn in, and then I'm rubbing her calf. And I said, do the 4 and 4. So that is, you breathe in on the up, hold it for 4, right? And then when you release it, and then on the down, hold it for 4. And then, and then I said, breathe in. And then she did, you know what? She did it 12 times, or, like for not even, so a set of 3, and it started to ease up. And I said, keep doing it. Keep doing it. So her foot started to kind of release and ease up. And she's seen the benefits like that. Sometimes it just doesn't, like where the morning is chaotic, and I'm like, just sit down and breathe. Just breathe. I mean, it's amazing how quickly your system regulates. That central nervous system just regulates with that. It reacts quickly.
Yeah. I mean, these non-addictive tricks, tips, therapies that we forget about. And every time we do it, we're like, I forgot how useful and effective that was. I forgot I should do that more.
Yeah. And it's just something that's like, I mean, it's innate, it's primal, it's as biological as you can get. It's like something.
And the nervous system reset. Like, you're not kidding. People just feel like they took a Xanax, that they sit and breathe, like good, deliberate, determined breathing. That Wim Hof, that guy. Yeah, like he's got videos online of people doing his exercises, then breathing out all their air, and then doing as many push-ups as they can. And they'll do twice as many push-ups with no air in their lungs versus, and he's like, and it starts to make sense, but yeah, there's really good rabbit holes of great information.
So one of actually we've done a couple really long, actually more than a couple, but the ones that stand out, I was holding my breath, and my buddy was he was facilitating the breath work, right? So he's kind of saying, do this and do that. And I had held my breath at one point it was about 4 minutes, and I could have kept going. It's amazing. And that's what like free divers use. And again, this is, cultures that are thousands of years old. This is what they do. Like if they're free diving for their food, you know what I mean? They're down there for 10, 12, 15 minutes. This is stuff that they've known.
Yeah, this used to be like common knowledge, right? And now we saw it on TV and thought it's new.
Right. And this is stuff that's been around since man has been around.
Okay. Meditation, breathing. Let's get into the telepathy tapes. You want to set that up? Because I am endlessly fascinated by this.
So that is something that, it's funny because it's been out for I think 2 or 3 years now. And when we first started the podcast, we had listeners telling me like, you got to listen to the Telepathy Tapes podcast, because I was sharing some experiences that I had, and it falls right into this. But it starts off with non-speaking autistic kids and how they communicate with each other telepathically. And not just with each other, but they're seeing that with their parents, with their caretakers. So that's kind of where it starts. And then it goes into like just collective consciousness and NDEs, near-death experiences. And it covers everything. And it almost seems like it's like a spider web. It's all connected. And And it's just fascinating. I don't know how really to explain it other than that. Like if you have any interest in anything that is maybe it's paranormal, but when you listen to this, you're going to be like, is it paranormal or is it normal? Is it stuff that we are told that is paranormal, or are these things, are these abilities that we all have, and we're just in this, again, most people are in some sort of machine, right, with life, and then these filters kind of keep that stuff that is innate, stuff that we've been doing and are capable of doing, but we're just not able to anymore until you're intentional about it, until you're either meditating or you're trying to expand the mind, open the mind. That's what it comes down to. And it's that. I mean, it delves into so many beautiful, beautiful stories, and the research they've done with this stuff. Like these stories that you're going to hear, I mean, they're irrefutable. There's no way you can poke holes in some of these stories. I mean, and there's like researchers that are saying this, like, we don't have any explanation for this other than there is something bigger than us. And we're all connected to it. That's the thing. That's kind of in a nutshell what this podcast is. I'm not quite done with the second season, but every single episode is beautiful in its own way. I mean, sometimes you're literally just crying because it gives you hope, because you're hearing like people that are communicating with people that have passed on, and there's no way, again, to poke holes through what they're saying. Like, this isn't somebody lying. There's no way they could know this information. There's things that are being told from a loved one that's passed on, and they have this information. Like, it's just mind blowing. So it gives you hope. It's just,
yeah. One of the examples that gave me goosebumps was a kid, and he could see through his mom's eyes. And they put him on a different side of the room, and to research standards, no mirrors, no bank shots, can't see anything. And the researcher is on the other side of the room with a calculator, just making up numbers. And the kid across the room is just pecking them out on a board. Zero friction, can see through his mom's eyes. Some kids were like 100% accurate, but most were like 80, 90, something, like undeniable. And that kid said something. He goes, "You don't get my gift if you're deceptive." And that shook me to the core. Like, oh, we're tuning into something. And you can't have deceit.
So remember what they said about the hill? Do you remember the hill?
Yeah. The hill is spooky too. All these autistic kids, they all agree they're meeting somewhere near a tree on a hill. And it's the communal place.
Yeah, in a different dimension, different realm, and that was what they said. They said because there was another interview that they did with this guy Dan, who was one of the caretakers, and he's neurotypical, so he doesn't have, he's not neurodivergent. He doesn't have like autism, but he works with these kids, and he feels that they let him into the hill. So he's been there several times, and he even asked the question like, "Aren't you afraid somebody neurotypical is going to come in?" Because we know the government's been doing, remote viewing studies. They've been doing these sorts of things, out of body, whatever you want to call it, experiments for years. Are you afraid that somebody's going to come in that might be deceptive? And he said, no. They have like these gatekeepers that we know your intentions when you come in. And if there's anything nefarious, you're not going to be a part of it, which was amazing.
Yeah, they describe the aura if you're deceptive. Like, it's, to them, it's real, and there's no faking it.
Yeah. So it's just a beautiful podcast, but I mean, it gives you hope. It gets you exhilarated because it feels, and I've always felt this. That's the thing. Not to I'm not bashing on religion, but I was born and raised Catholic, and I have always questioned things, and I've always felt like it was more spiritual than religious. So I've always believed in something bigger. I don't know what that is, right? But I've always and connected to something bigger. After doing the ayahuasca, I felt that connection deepen. And after listening to the Telepathy Tapes podcast, I was able to articulate it more and kind of connect some of those dots. And hearing some of these stories, now it's like I know in my heart there is something more. And whether that's like a God or all of us are God, there's some sort of collective consciousness that we're all a part of it. It's all love. And that's another thing they say kind of throughout this whole podcast, like we're not supposed to be competing in the hatred that we are in this world, because when we get beyond this into where they are, this next realm, whatever, it's all love. We're all connected.
Yeah, once we get beyond time and space, it gets pretty weird. But I'm with you. And these are persistent rumors in culture across history. The Akashic records, karma, every culture, every old culture acknowledges this. And I was like, well, why don't we have it now? And somebody pointed out to me that institutional memory is 2 generations old. So you don't know how your grandfather grew up very well. I mean, you might, but it just doesn't persist. And so we're losing knowledge as fast as we are, like all the knowledge of the herbs. This is the one that kills me, and it's a little bit off topic, but things that have been taken from us is our ancestors knew the herbs in the earth and what was close and what could heal you and help you. Gone. It's there in pockets, but you really got to earn it.
Yeah, and I think that was by design, because they addressed that in one of the Telepathy Tapes podcast episodes, talking about plant medicine and how far, like you're saying, it goes back thousands of years. But then it was back, I think, in the Roman, the Roman culture, that was by design, where they basically started taking that away from people, making it taboo. And then there were people that were underground that were still holding these recipes, these things, and they were able to kind of weather the storm, so they're there, but that was by design, just trying to take away what is nature and is healing. So yeah, I agree with you, man. It's I don't know, but that.
All right. So one last question to wrap it up. We can't live in villages, but how do we become happier with our friends, neighbors, and communities? Because we all get home dead tired. We don't have time. I mean, unless you're really pushing it, like Boy Scouts and but soccer, there's a whole universe. But how can you be deliberate to maximize your happiness? Is it just paying attention to yourself and what makes you happy, or is it more of picking up the cues of what's around you?
I think it's a little of both, and I think it's being intentional because it's easy to isolate, right? I think that's really easy to come home after work and just be in the house, right? And then you're leaving the house the next morning for work or whatever the routine is. I think it's just getting out, and whether that's grabbing coffee in your neighborhood, taking walks, saying hey to your neighbors. We're extremely intentional and have been and love our neighborhood. And sometimes you go months without seeing a certain neighbor, but we're very intentional with making sure we say hi and talk to neighbors. And as we're walking around, stopping and talking to a neighbor, it's just trying to really push that social aspect, like you're saying, because we're all social creatures, and some of us are more introverted than others, but we need each other, and you need that human connection, especially now with we could go down the whole rabbit hole of AI, right? If we're not careful, we're losing it and fighting against the AI thing. Don't get me wrong, I love technology where it's going, but it's also frightening where it's going. Because if we're not cognizant of this, the human connection, and I know we're doing it over a Zoom, but we get together and we have lunch, make sure you're intentional about seeing people face to face.
Yeah, there's a lot of visual cues that don't make it over the internet. Yeah. And so I go up to Malta, Idaho, and driving down the road, it's the Malta hey. Everybody raises a finger or two to just say, hey, I see you, I acknowledge you. But I come to the city and I don't get that. Right? And I'm like, what's the difference? And I had to have to think about it. And I read this study about who's the popular kids in high school. And it was the kid who acknowledges everybody. You don't have to like everybody, but generally they do like everybody, so they acknowledge, and everybody feels like that person's okay. So when you go from a small town to the big city, you kind of lose acknowledging everybody. And so you have to go places where you do say hi, greet, catch up, high five, whether it's a church or not. I don't care what it is. Scouts, I don't know, even work for some people, but getting out and you're like, what's the purpose of that? Why is the acknowledging important? It's because you're part of a group and they saw you, you saw them. If you end up missing, somebody's going to say, oh, I saw him driving down the road the other day, and you're part of a holistic community. But us driving around ignoring each other isn't quite helping, but I don't know everybody. So putting yourself in those situations is very healthy, and you'll find that you're missing it if you're not in a situation or a community where you're acknowledged once in a while, at least, for just existing.
Yeah, we all just want to be seen and heard. And, you know, to kind of speak to that a little further, I try to do this once a day. Some days get away from me, but when I'm out wherever, if I'm out somewhere in public, I try to give a compliment to at least one person. And I'm always nice, and I'm always looking at people and saying hi and that sort of thing. So I'm holding doors. Like today, we went to breakfast after boxing, and it was an older couple holding the door, and, you know, just have a great day. And he was like, oh, thanks. You too. Thanks for holding the door, that kind of thing. But I try to give compliments on top of that. Like if I like someone's hair, I'll say it. Like instead of thinking it, I'm like, really deep. And I'll to dudes too. Like I'll say, dude, I love your hair. And it might come across as weird, but I don't care because I truly like, you know, if I see something that I like, I'm going to tell that person.
Push that positive attention out, man. That pays forward. Your compliment may go 4 more compliments ahead. Like, it's energy. You're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And acknowledgement. And there's power in a compliment, and just you don't have to give a compliment, but just the eye contact or saying hi to somebody. There is so much power in that. It's the connection. I mean, it's so deep.
Oh yeah, when a pretty girl said hi to me in 8th grade, that made my whole day. Like, that was really powerful. And now, like, for me, I love it because I look at people, you assess them, and you're like, she spent a lot of time picking out those earrings, or matching those socks to those earrings was an effort. I should at least acknowledge it because it looks cute. Yeah, okay, I won't deny her that. It doesn't need to be anything profound. Appreciate the effort you put into that.
Well, here's another quick story. So yesterday I took Axel to get guitar here in Holiday and dropping him off for his lesson. So I go over to Caputo's across the street and I grab a coffee. And the woman that's there, because I went there the week prior too, because he just started the lessons. And she was like, can I help you? And I said, I'll take one of the, whatever, it's the drip blend or whatever. And she was like, how's your day going? I was like, it's great. How's yours? And then she said, it's nice to see you again. So she remembered me from last week. And I said, it's nice to see you too. And it was just, and it really made me, and I even did a little post, a little story on it, just giving a little shout out to Caputo's and how that is the epitome of community and how it just, the power of a compliment. And it wasn't even a compliment. It was just acknowledgement, I guess. The power of just acknowledging the person.
That's it. That's all it takes to recognize someone. Let them know, I saw you before, I see you again. Not saying I love you, just, hey, it's good. I'm glad you're here. We're surviving.
Because if we're not careful, we're going to lose it. I mean, really, we're in an age right now where that is, it's a slippery slope with the technology, and it's easy for it's even easier for people to isolate.
Yeah, it's hard to tune in with AI because it sends you on missions, and people it's very easy to see how people give up their free agency to the AI. How many people have killed themselves with it or done crazy things? Be very careful and have your consciousness dictate. All right, Frankie, we've wasted another hour together. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate it, man.
That's awesome. Dude, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.